So I guess now with burn barrel in the shop, what we're going to do is we're going to drop the factory rear axle. Now, I'm dropping this axle because it's an 8.8 and they're not really known to be the world's toughest axles. They break quite easily when you get hit, and they break right at the actual outer axle housing, right where the disc brakes go into the actual housing. And you know what, it's a real upset if I put all this time and effort into this car and it breaks with a quick axle shot from Illumina or from another full-sized car, and Luminas around here are known as axle breakers. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop this stock axle and we're going to put a different Ford axle into it. So it's a pretty straightforward plan. This car right here, because it's 2008 and newer, it has 4 straight links and a 4-link setup, and then a Watts link which connects to the passenger side and the driver's side and then connects to the axle. So we'll be taking out the Watts link, we'll be taking out the just undoing the 4-link that goes to the axle, taking the tires off. The springs we'll take out because I have different springs to put in maybe. And another thing is that we'll be trying to save as much of the brake lines as possible because I don't know how we're going to have to hook it up to the new axle. Because I'm only planning on running rear brakes on this car. I don't want any front brakes, I don't want anything up there like that, because then you have the possibilities of them grabbing and one front tire not turning, and then you just go in circles with a rear-wheel drive, especially once they're locked in the back. The main reason why I'm changing this axle is because the new axle I've got a spool into. So a spool is like welding the rear axle, but better because it's got less possibility of breaking. Plus it's got upgraded gears in it. This year's probably got 302, maybe because it's a cop car, maybe 373s. The new gears I'm putting in are 456s. So what that means, it means that I can spin these rear tires easily with less power from the motor, which basically means that less power, more grip. It works out. The only downside of it's a really muddy track, I'll just basically sit there spinning my tires. So it's got an upside and a downside, but I think it's worth the swap. So a couple months ago, maybe a month ago, we did buy parts from Jeffy's. The 98 and newer axle swap kit for any axle. So we will be using these, thanks again to Jeffy's Fab Farm. He's got a Facebook page if you want to buy any parts. I've actually ordered some more parts from him. I've ordered a Camry header and a Camry shifter, so hopefully we get those soon. But yeah, glad that we got these from Jeffy. So I guess let's get this up and see what this job entails. So here's the plan, what we're going to do with this rear axle. We're going to undo these sway bar mounts, both sides. Just swing that down out of the way. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take off this Watts link right here. Hopefully just be able to hammer that up out of the way. We're going to leave it attached to the frame as of right now. And then right after that, we're going to undo these shocks. And when you undo the shocks, the rear axle should just drop down probably about 8 to 10 inches. And then remove the springs. We're going to just undo the brake lines. They're just bolted to the frame up there. And then once we have all that done, we can just undo these bolts. And the rear axle should be out of the car. So let's get started on this and yeah, let's go. So we have the 8.8 out of the Ford right here, and then we have the new Ford axle to go in. So before we do anything, I kind of got to come up with a game plan. I got to find out measurement from mount to mount. I got to find measurement from spring perch to spring perch, see how they compare back and forth, and then I also want to check tire mounting surface to tire mounting surface, just to see what I'm dealing with, right? Like, if one's much bigger than the other, then I'm going to have to come up with some kind of plan. But as of right now, I'm just going to get a piece of paper and start with the measuring tape and see what numbers I can come up with and see if this is even going to work. So some quick measurements here, and I need about 54 and a half. Now 54 and a half is going to put me basically at shock mount to shock mount. So I'm going to basically cut everything off this axle. I'm going to cut the spring perches, I'm going to cut the bottom mounts off, I'm going to cut the shock mounts, I'm also going to cut the top of the watts. That's an upper link because this had like a crazy 3-link system. So I'm going to cut that off as well. So basically, and like I said, everything's got to come off this. It's got to be ground clean. I'm probably even going to remove all the brake cable, so that way the brake line, so that way I can do what I want to do to the axle. So I guess let's get the torch over here and get started cutting. I didn't really record it because of how heavy the axle was and how much I kind of changed things up as I went. But what we have is we have those new Jeffy Fab Farm sprockets in here, just tacked. We got washers in there to add a little bit of a spacer. But these are very, very tight to the actual drums themselves. So when it comes time for me to put new brake lines onto this, it's not going to be an easy job. You see it tucked way back in there? Same as this side, way back in there. Axle's not centered in the car yet, but the mounts are centered, so that's all that really matters to me. I'm just going to toss some springs in here. I'm going to toss the factory Crown Vic ones in there, and then see what kind of height I get, and if I toss the Lincoln ones in there and see what kind of height I get. So let's go. So I don't have the shocks hooked up, so that's why she's so bouncy. But honestly, I think that height's perfect, and no, I cannot run these tires. My plan is to put these smaller tires on the back, which are doubled, and I don't normally run doubles, but I'm pretty sure this axle can take doubles. But we're going to run those tires on the back, and yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that sits. So we're going to lift it back up, take the tires off. We're going to mount these spring perches onto the axle, just weld them on there, and then we'll wire down the springs to them because we're not allowed to weld the springs. And then we'll start measuring for center of the axle compared to center of the car. But honestly, I like how that looks. I like how it sits. I don't need the big springs out of the Lincoln. But where I'm planning to take this car is not really muddy tracks. I think one of them's probably going to be on concrete, and the other two or three I'm going to take it to are very hard tracks. I think there's only maybe one muddied track that I might take this thing to, but we'll see in September when that derby comes if I'm able to make it there. But yeah, you know what? I'm very happy with how that looks in the back of this car. So now let's get this all done, weld everything in, and then the 9-inch will be in the back, and then all we have to worry about is brakes and drive shaft. I'm quite happy with how this all went together. Honestly, it looks like it's supposed to be how it's supposed to be, basically. I did the same setup with shocks as I did as the factory had. These were just cut off the other axle and then welded back on. But everything's done. The only thing that's not done is I haven't decided if I'm going to use the panhard or if I'm going to use the Watts link. So, in retrospect, the Watts link would be easier because all I have to do is weld a bolt to here and have it extend through, and then for every car I swap it into after this, it'll be just the same thing. Put a bolt in and go. But, yeah, I'm really happy with how this went. To be honest, this went about 4 hours faster than what I thought it was going to go. And it was actually a lot easier than I thought it was going to go as well. So tomorrow I'll come out here, I'll throw the Watts link on, just have to go buy a 5/8 bolt about 3.5, 4 inches long, and then we can start on drive shaft and brakes. But I'm just warning you guys right now, the brake video might be full of swearing. Can you see the brake inside there? There you go. Not even able to get at her. So there'll be some cursing and swearing when that video comes up. But thanks for watching Zach's Workshop. Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button, and and leave a comment if you're happy to see Project Burn Barrel back in the garage.